Hi, my name is Trainmaster04, and in this video I'll be reviewing the beautiful black bonnet Texan from Lionel. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Union Pacific 4014. Do you read me? Over. Roger that. Union Pacific 4014. I read you. Over. Start up and stand by. Over. Yes, sir. Start up and stand by.
To start off this video, let's dive into the history books and take a look at the real 5001. Santa Fe 5001 is considered a Texas-type steam locomotive with a unique wheel arrangement of 2-10-4 underneath the boiler. 5001 was originally built by the Baldwin Locomotive Works and was delivered to Santa Fe in 1938. In total, she had 35 sisters, her class having 10 numbered 5001 through 5010, and then the second class 5011 through 5035. Overall, these locomotives became the largest locomotives ever on the Santa Fe railroads, with an impressive boiler pressure of 310 psi, making it the largest boiler pressure in America. In comparison, the Santa Fe 210-4s were even bigger compared to the Chesapeake and Ohio 210-4s, considerably, considering they had only 300 psi, smaller drivers, and also smaller cylinder diameters. Now, however, the 210-4s of the 5001 or 5011 class were not the first 210-4s on the Santa Fe. Its history dates back all the way to 1919. In the year 1919, by this time, the Santa Fe had never even heard of a 210-4 type steam locomotive. It was still considered an unknown and experimental wheel arrangement never put into practice. The biggest locomotive the Santa Fe had at the time were either 484 Northerns and 210-2 Santa Fe type steam locomotives. In the year 1919, Santa Fe decided, let's go and switch things up, and in May 29th of 1919, the Santa Fe decided to take one of their recently ordered 210-2s and modify it to have a four-wheel truck design. As a result, engine number 3829 became the first 210-4 steam locomotive in history in North America. 3829 was produced due to Santa Fe using the original 210-2s in helper services. While backing down the heavy mountain grades, Santa Fe noticed that the 210-2s really couldn't travel very fast with the insufficient two-wheeled rear truck, so Santa Fe decided, let's add an extra 4. 3829 had a successful career, so successful it wasn't until 1930 that Santa Fe reintroduced the 210-4 with the Madam Queen number 5000. The Madam Queen proved and solidified the 210-4 wheel arrangement. Unfortunately, she became the one of her own class, designated 5000. The Madam Queen was used in the Pecos Division between Clovis and Belen, New Mexico, and really put in a lot of hours. Due to the Great Depression, unfortunately, the Madam Queen was the only 210-4 available on the Santa Fe for many years. It wasn't until 1936 that Santa Fe gained enough funds to even think about going back to Baldwin and purchasing more 210-4s. Thus, in 1938, Baldwin delivered 5001 and her 9 other sisters, numbering through to 5010. These locomotives, as stated earlier, were joined by 25 other sisters in 1944, designating the 5011 and through 5035 class. Both class locomotives eventually were used across all over Santa Fe, proving to be even better than the Madam Queen, both fuel and tonnage-wise. Unfortunately, these locomotives were never further developed or tested due to dieselization and also the Presidented War of World War II. It wasn't until 1956 that a handful of these 210-4 beasts, specifically the 5011 class, went over to the northeast of the United States into Pennsylvania, where they assisted their fellow 210-4s, the J1 Pensy class, to haul tonnage of coal that had spiked during the summer. Both the 5001 and 5011 class were soon retired in 1955. Unfortunately, there are not a lot of these locomotives left in preservation. Fortunately, though, there are 4 5011 classes still left to this day, and then the Madam Queen herself. Engine number 5011 is located at the National Museum of Transportation in Kirkwood, Missouri. Engine number 5017 at the National Railroad Museum in Green Bay, Wisconsin. 5021 at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, and finally engine number 5030 at Salvador Perez Park in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and then 5000 herself being located in Amarillo, Texas. Overall, these locomotives became huge successes that unfortunately were died out a lot too soon. With the interesting history lesson on the real 5001 out of the way, let's move on to the stats and facts of the model that you see right in front of you. This model was recently released in Lionel's 2022 Big Book or Volume 1 catalog and soon started showing up in private and local hobby shops around November of the same year. Both the locomotive and tender have a combined length of 30.5 inches, making it one of the largest single non-articulated locomotives ever produced by Lionel. As a result, this locomotive has a minimum curve radius of 0.72. Now, if this locomotive looks a little bit familiar to you, you might be. This locomotive is the former MTH tooled locomotive under the PS2 and PS3 command system that Lionel bought when MTH was downsizing their fleet. However, this model has been updated with legacy features and a few other details. Under the hood, this model is powered by one large flywheel motor and is also equipped with 2 fan-driven smoke units, both of which being located up here at the front. The first one being used for the main smokestack, which, speaking of the same smokestack, it can be interchanged with 3 other stacks. For example, the first one that you see right here, a little stubby version, another version being a cone-shaped version that has the smoke go towards the back, and then the third being an extended stack that goes straight up. For the second smoke unit, it is located near the smokestack, and it is for the smoking whistle. Originally, the MTH model never had a smoking whistle, so this is an updated feature from Lionel. For electronics, this locomotive is equipped with Lionel's latest version of their legacy rail sounds, meaning you have 5 different whistles, 5 different bells, and unique crew and tower comm chatter. For other electronics, this model is also equipped with Lionel's legacy command system, which means you can operate this locomotive via Lionel's legacy Cab 3, Cab 2, Cab 1, Bluetooth, or even conventional. With these statistics out of the way, let's go ahead and take a closer look at the model. Starting at the front of the locomotive, here you can see we have a nicely detailed boiler-tubed pilot with a separately applied brake hose, 2 separately applied steps, a separately applied coupler cup bar with chain leading into a central dummy scale coupler. Moving on up, here you can see we have molded in 2 air compressor shields with a separately applied grab arm in between, and 2 separately applied air compressors right behind them. Moving on up to the smoke box of the locomotive, here you can see we have a beautiful brass bell, 2 separately applied marker lights which do contain a white and green LED that can be changed via the Legacy or TMCC command control system, a central headlight with the 5001 number board underneath, which does come on when the locomotive is in operation, and also the boiler front door itself does swing open, which is an updated version from the original MTH model. Moving over to the engineer side of the locomotive, starting up top, here you can see we have a separately applied classification board, which does come on when the locomotive is in operation, the whistle, throttle linkage, handrail that does run along the length of the boiler, separately applied pipework, boiler bands, and also a separately applied legible builder's plate. Moving on down, you can see we have a step ladder leading up to the running boards, which are beautifully lined with the yellow stripe. It really does look good against the black background. Moving down, at the bottom here you can see we have the engineer side of these cylinders, which are extremely massive, cross-set, and also the Walschaerts valve gear right next to a molded in mechanical lubricating pump and a separately applied step ladder, which was typical on almost all Santa Fe steam locomotives. Moving over at the bottom, here you can see we have the massive 10 driving wheels, which in this case they measured 74 inches on the real prototype. Moving up, here again you can see the continuation of the running boards, various pipework underneath, a automatic reverser, air compressor, and various other details. Moving on up, here you can see the continuation of both that handrail, throttle linkage, various more molded in boiler bands, and also some more pipework. Looking at the end of the locomotive, in this case the cab and firebox area, Here you can see the cab itself is nicely detailed and painted in the beautiful red and yellow paint scheme. It has 5001 in the correct silverish gray Santa Fe font and paint. It has molded and rivet detailing, separately applied grab iron, and shade. Inside the cab itself, here you can see we have two hand-painted crew figures, two windows with clear plastic inserts. Moving on to the boiler itself, here you can see the molded in turret, pipework, the end of both the throttle and grab iron going to the cab itself, the end of the running board, steps leading down to the massive firebox, in this case it's an oil burner, with various other details, such as separately applied pipework, molded in rivet detailing, and also a massive four-wheeled trailing truck. Looking at the back of the cab, inside you can see there is a really nicely detailed back head with various valves and gauges that are hand painted, and right in the middle, a nice warm burning oil fire which is flickering away just quite nicely. At the roof, you can see it is nicely lit with a warm LED to illuminate all of the wonderful details when the locomotive is stopped. On the outside of the cab, you can see we have three separately applied metal curtains, two windows with clear plastic inserts, separately applied grab irons on either side of the cab edges, and at the very bottom, a molded in auger and the wireless drawbar at the locomotive end. Moving over to the fireman side of the locomotive, and as you can see, it pretty much is the same compared to the engineer side, but there are a few little details that are different. Up front here you can see we have pipework leading to a feed water heater. Over underneath the running boards, smaller pipework for the air compressor. And speaking about air, here is a larger air reservoir on this side of the locomotive. On top of the boiler, starting at the right and working to the left, here you can see we have a molded in Worthington feed water heater and the main smokestack. Now, in order to feed both the main smoke unit and the smoking whistle smoke unit, you simply pour the smoke fluid directly down the stack. Now, since this locomotive is equipped with two other optional and detachable smokestacks, in order to fill the smoke unit, I would suggest taking off the smokestack that you have on at the time, take a funnel, and pour your smoke fluid directly down the funnel into the smoke unit hole. Moving over, here you can see we have a molded in superheater patch, the pipework that I showed you earlier, and finally the enormous sand dome with 5001 printed on both sides. Now, graciously, in order to access the command runs program switch and other various accessory switches, instead of putting it underneath the cab or firebox area, Lionel graciously put it underneath the sand dome. As you can see, by lifting off, the cover reveals all four switches, one being for the run program switch, one for the Bluetooth on and off switch, and then finally the other two being for the smoke units. Simply replacing the cover hides them all away. Continuing down the boiler, here you can see we have the molded in steam dome with various pipework going to the turret, the safety valves in the middle, more various pipework, and also a separately applied dynamo on the opposite side. Moving over, on top of the turret it has nice hatch detail with molded in rivet detailing, and the roof itself also has rivet detailing but is primarily smooth, and in the center, two roof hatches which do move back and forth like so. With the locomotive taken care of, let's move over to the tender. Looking at the front of the tender, down at the bottom, here you can see we have two molded in steps leading up to the main tender deck, and also a small tender infrared sensor. Up on the main deck of itself, here you can see we have two separately applied grab irons on either side, a molded in sand box, and various other molded in details. Moving over to the engineer side of the tender, and as you can see, the black bonnet paint scheme really does come out to shine on the tender. Lionel really made sure that the masking on these tenders was very good so that the striping wasn't smudged. The tender itself, honestly, besides the sheer size, the paint scheme just really knocks the socks off on anybody who views it. For details besides the paint scheme, Lionel has included molded in rivet detailing, the Santa Fe along with a Santa Fe Indian, which is highly detailed, two sets of 8-wheeled trucks, which is prototypical to this size of a tender, and also a die-cast metal toolbox in the middle of each set of trucks. Looking at the back of the tender, starting at the bottom, here you can see we have the electrocoupler for this locomotive. In this case, the electrocoupler can be thrown by using Lionel's Legacy or TMCC or even Bluetooth command control. Moving on up, you can see we have 2 separately applied ladders, 2 separately applied grab irons, another separately applied ladder in the center leading up to the upper deck, more rivet detailing, number 5001 in the correct silver gray, and also some tender capacity stats above. Finally, on top of the deck itself, here you can see we have a lone reverse light, which does come on when the locomotive is put into reverse. And finally, looking on top of the tender, starting at the right, here you can see the fuel capacity, in this case oil, is enormous for this locomotive. For detail-wise, there's some more rivet detailing, the continuation of the red, black, and yellow striping, some separately applied pipework and grab irons, molded in toolboxes, and also 2 oil hatches. Originally, the MTH model, these 2 hatches were molded in, but thankfully, Lionel did make them both open, revealing nothing underneath. Moving over to the water tank portion, here again you can see the continuation of that flat black, molded in rivet detailing, and 4 more water hatches. Similar to the oil hatches, these 2 were molded in, but graciously Lionel added the ability to open and close them. Again, similar to the oil tank hatches, they too reveal nothing underneath. With both the locomotive and tender covered, let's go ahead and fire it up.
This is the tower. Make a pull to the pit to top her off. Over. Okay, let's get to work. Out.
With the locomotive fired up, let's hear a sample of some of the sound features. First up, here are the 5 quillable whistles. Next, here is the bell. Here is the steam blowdown sound. Here is the water and oil fill-up sound.
My water's full. Out. My oil's full. Out.
And finally, here is a sampling of both the crew and tower comm chatter. Some people like it, some people don't. I prefer right in the middle, so here's a sample of it.
Engine to dispatcher. Air's up. My crew's on board. Are we clear? Over. Please hold at your location. Out. Go over to the flag manor. Let's get going. Better see that fire while we're waiting. Going to be a hard pull ahead. My oil's full. Out.
Alrighty, I got some cars hooked up behind the tender. We've been given the green signal, so let's take this locomotive for a spin around the layout. That about wraps up this product review, but before I go, let me go ahead and answer the two questions that I normally ask around this time of the video, and they are, what is the original MSRP price for this model, and also what is my personal opinion on it? Well, to start off, the original MSRP price for this model is right at $1,750 or $1,750. Thankfully though, since this locomotive is pretty new, there are many of these models still out there in both the secondhand market in the case of eBay and also brand new at like Charles Rowe and trainworld.com. I would highly suggest visiting trainworld.com or even Charles Rowe, as they do carry a large supply of these locomotives besides taking pre-orders and typically give good discounts. Moving over to the second question, which is, what is my personal opinion on this model? Overall, I am extremely ecstatic that these locomotives have been produced. When MTH first came out with the 210-4, I really wasn't old enough to actually purchase one, and eventually did order one a year ago from the secondhand market with PS2, and I was just astounded with that model. Though it did not have all the extra detail features and didn't really have the greatest sound features equipped within the locomotive, I enjoyed what details it had and the sheer size of it. So the fact that Lionel actually went ahead and purchased the tooling for these 210-4s and even went above and beyond and updated the electronics as well as the details, I am just so happy. The fact that Lionel also added and kept other original features such as the brass bell up front with the bell yoke, which was original to the MTH model, I am just ecstatic. For performance-wise, this model ran flawlessly. This locomotive ran smooth around 072 curves, though it would look a lot better compared to such as 088 or 090 curves since it is such a big locomotive. Paint scheme, it is stunning. I'm so glad that Lionel finally decided to go and produce their own black bonnet versions instead of having hobby shops produce special runs or even having to find somebody out there that can actually make them. Overall, this model would be a great addition to somebody's layout that wants something a little bit more different, colorful, but still has that big brute look. This would be the model for you. Or if you want an addition to your Santa Fe layout and get the famous 5011 or 5001 class to your layout, definitely check out Lionel's other offerings of this model. It is such a great model for a great price. That's it for this product review, but before you go, I just want to say thank you very much for clicking on this video and also watching it to the very end. It takes me a long time to produce these high quality videos for you to enjoy, so I really do appreciate you watching it to the very end. Now, if you'd like to support my channel, please do click on that subscribe button so that you won't miss any other videos in the near future, and also clicking on the like button, as that allows YouTube to know that my videos are actually worth something, and also lets me know that you have been enjoying this type of content. But anyway, my name is Trainmaster04, and I'll be seeing you next time.